Robin Walker, the Schools Minister, who joins us now live. Mr Walker, thank you very much for being with us and good morning to you. So just tell us, what is the British government doing to try and make sure that these men are released?
Well, I mean, as the Foreign Secretary has made clear, we will offer all support we can to them and their families. We have been absolutely clear throughout that these people should be treated as prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention. There is no basis on which they can be put on trial. This is an illegal court in a sham government that has held this trial, and obviously we don't recognise it has any authority. But we will continue to use all diplomatic channels to make the case that these are prisoners of war who should be treated accordingly.
I mean, diplomatic channels is one thing. Is there any more assistance being given to these men, of course, remembering that they are in a breakaway separatist region?
We will provide all assistance to their families, and it's right that the Foreign Secretary has spoken out about doing that. Clearly, they are in this area controlled by Russia's proxies, and that's why it's absolutely vital that Russia recognises its obligations under international law and meets its commitments under the Geneva Convention.
I mean, will the Russian ambassador to the UK be spoken to today?
I don't have that detail, but I know that the Foreign Secretary has been clear that we utterly condemn the approach that's been taken here, and that we will use every method at our disposal to take this issue up. So I think that's really a question for my colleagues at the Foreign Office.
OK, thank you for that, Mr Walker. Let's talk now, if we can, about something that's affecting everyone here in the UK, of course, the cost of living crisis. We've seen that more record high prices for fuel. What's the government doing to try and make sure that people can actually fill their tanks affordably?
Well, first of all, we saw in the recent spending review the 5p cut to fuel duty, which is the biggest cut in many years. But I recognise that's been more than outweighed by the pressure on the wholesale cost of energy. That's why we have to help people directly. We have to make sure that the kind of support through the £37 billion package that the Chancellor has announced, getting money directly to people through their energy bills, through council tax, through changes to universal credit, through the direct support that we've announced, can make a difference and will make a difference. But this is an enormous challenge, and I recognise I have constituents who are profoundly affected by the cost of energy. I've always campaigned, both as a backbencher and a minister, to try and keep fuel duty down to reduce the impact of that. And I think the Chancellor will continue to have to look at all the tools at his disposal to try and keep these costs down, because of course it is the case that when fuel duty or fuel prices rise substantially, it has a broader impact on the cost of living.
It certainly does. I mean, the one thing that could be done right now is to reduce fuel duty again, couldn't it?
Well, I think that's obviously a question for the Treasury.
Would you support that idea, then, Mr.
There's
Walker?
There's always a strong case for looking at whatever we can do to help on these things. But as I say, the most recent fiscal event, we had the biggest cut in fuel duty that's ever been delivered by a government. That is a substantial move. And of course, I think it's right that we're looking to help people in other ways. £37 billion is a very substantial package of support. It does mean that some of the poorest families in society will be getting up to £1,200 to help. That is a substantial difference, and we've got to continue to look to see where we can put our arms around people and make that kind of difference.
Now, there's some reporting this morning that people who work in health and social care, teachers as well, are finding it impossible to fill their tanks and get to work because of the cost of fuel. What should be done to try and help those people who work in the public sector?
Well, clearly, where people are recompensed for their travel, that needs to be looked at. Those figures need to be looked at to make sure that they're keeping pace with the prices. But also, we need to make sure that we are making sure that people actually do keep more of the money that they earn. And that's why I think the rising of the threshold in national insurance is really important. That will keep more money in people's pockets. It's why the whole range of measures for that £37 billion package of support that the Chancellor has announced can make a real difference to keeping people going, supporting people. But it's also why, and I think the government has been clear about this, we need to keep all of these things under review to see if more help is needed.
When will that help be coming, though? Because we do keep hearing that more help may well be needed and things are under review. We've seen some measures come in, but as you'll know, that those measures have been criticised as not being enough.
Well, I think we have had a range of measures, some of which have already come in: the £150 council tax rebate, increases in the household support fund, and the increase in the national living wage and the cut to fuel duty. They're already in place. The next step will be the increase in national insurance thresholds, which will make more money to what people can keep from their pay packets. And then 8 million households on mean-tested benefits will be directly sent the first instalment of their £650 cost of living payment. So these things are rolling in over time. I think they all make a difference. I think we also need, I think Michael Gove was clear about this yesterday, to make sure that we are holding the retailers for account, that they are passing on the cuts to fuel duty that the government has delivered. And I think there's more that can be done to ensure that that's happening. And I'm very keen that we continue to support people on the basis of disadvantage, people on disability payments, pensioners, people. We need to make sure that we get the right support out there as swiftly as possible. And of course, for my responsibility in the school space, we're also continuing to invest in the holiday activities from food fund, making sure that children have more support, not just during term time through free school meals and the pupil premium, but also outside of term time in a way that no government previously ever has.
Mr Walker, you'll know there's a price tracker in play being used in Northern Ireland at the moment to keep an eye on petrol prices. Is that something you'd want to see more widely used across the country?
I haven't seen the detail of that, and it's outside my brief, so I'm not going to comment too directly, but I would say, as a local MP, I used to publish a table of the prices at the petrol pumps in my constituency. I can see the value of doing that and drawing people's attention to where prices are cheapest and whether there's any outliers who aren't passing on the prices. I do think it's important that we do everything we can to help the public, so we ought to look at whatever's being done in other parts of the UK to see if that works.
OK, Mr Walker, let's have a little discussion then about stuff that is within your remit, of course. And I want to just play you quickly, before we talk about what you're here to talk about today, something that the social mobility czar told our Beth Rigby last night about the Prime Minister. Let's have a listen to this.
No, I do not think so. I don't. I wish he could be, but he isn't. And that is a bit sad. I like Boris. I don't think he's a bad guy, but I don't know enough about what he's got up to, but I do not think that he's a good role model for children.
Apologies for setting you up like that, Mr Walker. That question was put to Ms Birble Singh. Is Boris Johnson a good role model? You heard her answer. He's not.
Well, that's her opinion. Of course, she's entitled to her opinion on that. I think actually anyone who leads this country is a role model, someone that children can look up to. The Prime Minister has shown phenomenal resilience through the COVID pandemic and leadership. And I think that's something that children should learn about, understand about in schools. I think it's also, he's a great communicator. And one of the things we seek to teach in all our schools is the importance of communication, through great literacy, through great speech and language. And so there's plenty for people to look up to in that respect. And I think the Prime Minister will be judged in the long run by his legacy, the way in which he's seen this country through the pandemic and delivered some of the strongest growth for this country, the way in which he's invested. That's something that I think I'm very proud to support him in.
Yeah, I mean, legacy of breaking the law, as you'll know, has been fined for those lockdown parties. I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? You said that you think he's a great communicator, but it's embarrassing that the school social mobility czar doesn't think that the Prime Minister is a good role model.
I think the Prime Minister has accepted that there are things for which he's apologised, and it's quite right that she should do that. And in that respect as well, that's something that I think it's important that children understand the importance of acknowledging when you've got things wrong. But I think he's also someone who has taken the big calls, taken great decisions in the long run, and I think that's why the party have been behind him when he's had this vote of confidence earlier in the week. That's why I think he needs to now continue to show that he's listening to the British people and delivering on their priorities.
And tell us then, Mr Walker, about this announcement today of 14,000 extra school places being assigned. How is that going to be paid for?
So this is an exciting announcement, but we are delivering, not just in the mainstream school sector, where we are going to be delivering more targeted places in the areas where they're needed most, new school provision, particularly in the 16 to 19 sector, in areas that don't have it, in our in education investment areas that we set out during the white paper, but also, crucially, the specialist places, which I know the system has been crying out for, and new specialist and alternative provision settings. In terms of how that's being paid for, the Chancellor set out the spending review, £2.6 billion for the specialist education sector. This is one element of how that money will be spent. So new provision where it's needed, and I know from listening to schools and listening to teachers in my constituency, there are calls for this up and down the country. Meeting that need, we're also going to be investing in specialist settings in mainstream schools and expansion for existing specialist settings. So this is one element of that £2.6 billion package. And alongside that, the investment in mainstream schools targeted to the areas that need them most is part of the ongoing investment by the department to deliver new school places in a way that will help to level up education and meet our ambitions to drive up literacy and numeracy and attainment in every area of the country.
And with that in mind then, Mr Walker, why has there been an increase in the number of children who are seeking free school meals?
I think this reflects the pressures that we've been talking about, and that is something that we want to make sure that people are properly supported. We've developed a system both with free school meals and with a pupil premium, which the Conservative government introduced in 2011, that means we support people according to the challenges they face and the disadvantage. And I think we should be absolutely right to listen to the evidence to see if those numbers go up or down. We should make sure that the funding follows, and that's why we have raised the largest ever amount of pupil premium this year. I want to make sure that that continues to increase to support people and to make sure that those challenges that pupils may face in their daily lives are reflected in the support that they get in schools. That's why I think not only the pupil premium has reached its highest level this year, but we're also doubling the recovery premium for secondary schools to make sure that those pupils who need it most get the catch-up support that they need.
OK, Robin Walker, Minister for School Standards. Do appreciate your time this morning, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Have a good day.